The sound of my brother's laughter rings through the dining room, each chuckle slicing through me like a paper cut. I stare down at the Home Depot gift card in my hands. $30? Not even enough to buy decent paintbrushes, let alone the specialized tools I need for my restoration work. Thanks, I manage to say, though the word tastes like copper on my tongue. Mom beams at Ethan and Ryan. They're both sporting matching Rolex watches, birthday presents from last month. Ethan's watch catches the light as he moves, a flash of gold against his tanned wrist. "We know how practical you are, Julia," Mom says, using that nickname I despise. "This way you can get exactly what you need." I haven't corrected her in years. It doesn't matter. I'm Juliana, not Julia. Never Julia. Ethan and Ryan are already leaning over their new golf club sets, heads bent together like they're conspiring. The price tags are still dangling from the bags, $4,000 each, the same amount I'd needed for that restoration workshop in Florence. Dad clears his throat and adjusts his tie. "Speaking of practical," he says, his voice dripping with pride, "the boys just closed their first major accounts at the firm, following right in my footsteps." He raises his whiskey glass in a toast. "To the Parker legacy." Everyone joins in, lifting their glasses. Everyone except Nana Rose. From her spot across the table, her eyes meet mine with quiet understanding. She sees me, really sees me. The forgotten daughter gripping her wine glass so tightly her knuckles have gone white. "And what about Juliana's restoration of the Thompson portrait?" Nana Rose says, her voice cutting through the celebration. "That was quite an achievement, wasn't it?" Mom waves a hand, barely looking my way. "Oh yes, the painting thing. Very nice, dear." Then she turns back to the twins. "Now, tell everyone about that merger you're working on." Lucas, my boyfriend, sits beside me, his hands sliding over my knee in silent support. I can feel his unspoken encouragement. "Speak up. Demand recognition." But I've learned that screaming into the void only leaves you with a sore throat. "Actually," I say, standing up, "I should get going. Early client meeting tomorrow." The lie comes easily. The truth is, I can't bear another minute of this farce. Ryan looks up, genuinely surprised. "But we haven't had cake yet." "Save me a slice," I say with a forced smile as I gather my coat and purse. Lucas starts to rise, but I shake my head. Someone should stay and witness this perfect family portrait. Mom and Dad flanking their golden boys, while the forgotten daughter slips away unnoticed. On my way out, Nana Rose catches my arm. "Remember what I told you?" she whispers. "Sometimes the quietest revenge is the most satisfying." Her words echo in my mind as I kiss her cheek. The scent of her lavender perfume clings to me as I walk to my car, envelope in hand. When I get home, I finally open it. Inside is a check for $50,000 and a note written in Nana Rose's delicate handwriting. The drive home from dinner was a blur. Headlights, street signs, the city passing by like a dream I couldn't wake from. The envelope from Nana sat on the passenger seat, heavy with possibility. 50 grand, enough to change my life. Back in my apartment, I sat on the couch, fingers trembling as I held the check. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. It was Lucas. Again, 15 missed calls. I ignored it. I needed to think. My eyes drifted to my laptop, where an old email draft waited, an application for a prestigious restoration program at the Met in New York. I'd saved it months ago, too scared to send it, too convinced my family's indifference was proof I wasn't good enough. But Nana's words echoed in my head. Restore what matters most. Before I could second-guess myself, I hit send. And just like that, something inside me cracked open. Like peeling back old varnish on a painting, revealing the truth underneath. The next morning, I woke to a dozen texts from my mom. The family's annual Christmas trip to Aspen was coming up, and of course, they expected me to be there. "Mom, we're all going. Even the boys are taking time off from the firm. Your father's arranged the jet. Mom, it'll be just like old times." Old times? Like the time they left me behind at the Uffizi Gallery in Florence because Ethan had a tennis tournament. I was 16. They forgot me. A security guard found me sketching in an empty hall after closing. I texted back, me. I have commitments here, a half-truth. I wasn't lying about work, but I was also avoiding more than just family bonding. I knew how these trips went. The twins would bask in praise, while I stood in the background like a prop in a perfect family portrait. Later that day, Lucas called again. "Save me," I groaned when I answered. "That bad?" His voice was warm, soothing. "Mom booked me a first-class ticket to Aspen." Lucas chuckled. "First-class guilt trip." He paused for a moment. "Hey, I just got an interesting email. You should come over." I threw on a jacket and headed to his apartment. When I got there, he was waiting by the door with his laptop open. "Look at this," he said, spinning the screen toward me. It was an email from my dad's firm, Parker Sons. They were requesting proposals for a complete rebrand. They wanted to modernize their image. I frowned. "You're considering it?" "Think about it," Lucas said, his eyes gleaming with possibility. "If I take this job, I'll have inside access. Financial records? Client lists, everything they've built their precious legacy on." I started pacing. "That's crossing a line. Like they've crossed with you for 32 years? Lucas caught my hand, pulling me close. "You saw Nana's check. She wants you to fight back. This could be our chance." I chewed my lip, torn between right and wrong. The Parker family legacy was a fortress, but I'd spent my life locked outside, staring at their perfect facade. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a text from Ryan. "Ryan, hey sis, heard you might skip Aspen. Not cool. Need you there to keep E from boring everyone with golf stories." Another text followed. "Ryan. Plus, got news. Big news. Family stuff." I showed Lucas the texts. He arched an eyebrow. "Family stuff? What? They finally noticed you exist?" "Ryan's different," I murmured. Lucas snorted. "Different how? He tries to include you while they hand him everything on a silver platter. You deserve more than scraps of attention." Just then, another text popped up, from Nana Rose. "Nana. Come see me tomorrow, dear. There are things you need to know before Aspen." Lucas leaned over my shoulder, reading it. "Now that's interesting." I nodded, my mind already racing. I thought of the Met application, now under review, of the check still tucked in my desk drawer. "I'll go to Aspen," I said, surprising even myself. "But first I want to hear what Nana Rose has to say." Lucas smirked, pulling up the email from my dad's firm again. "And the proposal?" I stared at the Parker Sons letterhead. I remembered all those years Dad took the twins to his office, teaching them the business while I stayed home, forgotten with my art books. "Do it," I said finally. "But be careful, if they suspect anything." "Trust me," Lucas whispered, kissing my forehead. "By the time we're done, they won't know what hit them." That night, as I lay in bed, Ryan's text nagged at me. "Family stuff. The last time there was family stuff, Ethan and Ryan got partnership tracks at the firm. The time before that, matching BMWs when they passed the bar." My phone lit up again. "Mom. Booked your flight." "First class, of course," the boys insisted. Of course they did. Because in the Parker family, everything is first class, except the daughter who never quite fit the frame. I refreshed the Met application status page for the 100th time. Still under review, but soon, they'd all see. I closed my eyes, Nana's words whispering in my mind. The quietest revenge is the most satisfying. Tomorrow, I'd visit her. And then? Aspen. Let's see who's ready for family stuff. Nana Rose's place always felt like a time capsule. The scent of lavender hit me the moment she opened the door, her soft smile a quiet welcome. Her house, filled with antique furniture and framed family portraits, stood in stark contrast to the cold modern lines of my parents' mansion. "Come in, Juliana," she said, her voice warm. "We have a lot to discuss." I followed her to the parlor, where a pot of tea and a tray of scones sat waiting. She gestured for me to sit, but my nerves were too frayed. I paced instead, glancing at the familiar paintings lining the walls. "You've been busy," I said, nodding toward the art supplies in the corner. "Restoration work keeps me grounded," she replied, pouring tea with steady hands. "But it's not my work we need to talk about." She slid a manila folder across the coffee table. I stared at it for a moment before sitting down and opening it. Inside were financial statements, trust fund details, and investment records. My eyes caught on one particular entry: educational trusts for Ethan and Ryan, millions. The list continued: private school tuitions, European internships, sports camps. Then I saw my name, Juliana Parker, art school loan, $25,000, a loan, not a gift. A bitter laugh escaped before I could stop it. "A loan?" Nana nodded slowly, her eyes sad. "Your brother's education was fully funded. Yours wasn't." My hands trembled as I flipped through the rest of the folder. On the last page was a copy of my father's will, updated just last month. The family's entire art collection, pieces I'd spent years helping restore, was to be split between Ethan and Ryan. "They don't even appreciate art," I whispered. "They see it as decoration." "No, they don't," Nana agreed, her voice soft but firm. "And that's exactly why your father chose them." I stared at the papers, my mind racing. Years of being overlooked, dismissed, made to feel like I wasn't enough, all because I wasn't born a son. "There's more," Nana said, pulling out a second folder. "Your father's been making plans. The Aspen trip isn't just a family gathering. He's planning to announce his retirement." I blinked. "Retirement? He's handing the firm to the twins?" She nodded again. "Yes, but timing is everything, my dear. And I believe the timing couldn't be better for certain truths to come to light." My phone buzzed. It was Lucas. "Meeting with your father's firm in an hour. You were right about the financial records. Something's not adding up." "How did you get these?" I asked Nana, gesturing to the documents. She smiled, a little sly. "Your grandfather wasn't the only one who knew how to navigate the family business. Before he died, he shared certain concerns with me about your father's management practices." Another text from Lucas. "Found something big. Really big. Call me ASAP." Nana placed a hand on mine. "Juliana, the Parker family's been hiding cracks in its foundation for decades. It's time for those cracks to show." That evening, my mother called. Her tone was annoyingly cheerful. "Darling, wonderful news. The boys just closed the Henderson merger. We're having a celebration dinner tonight. You'll come, won't you?" I stared at the financial records still spread across my coffee table. "Actually, Mother, I have news of my own." "Oh?" Her voice shifted, prepared for disappointment. "What is it?" "I've been accepted into the Metropolitan Museum's restoration program in New York." The silence stretched for a beat too long before she spoke again. "But what about the family? The firm? Your brothers need—" "My brothers need what exactly?" I interrupted, anger bubbling to the surface. "More money? More praise? More pieces of my life to claim as their own?" "Juliana," she sighed, as though I were the one being unreasonable. "I don't understand why you're being so dramatic. We've always supported your little hobby." Hobby. 15 years of training. Countless hours preserving our family's art collection. And that's what she called it? "I have to go," I said, my voice tight. "I'll see you in Aspen." After hanging up, I called Lucas. He picked up on the first ring. "Jules," he said, excitement in his voice. "This is bigger than we thought. Tell me." "Your father's been running a scheme through the firm for years, moving client funds to finance the twins' lifestyles, covering it up with fake accounts." I sank onto the couch, my head spinning. "And the Henderson merger?" "A sham. It doesn't exist." Lucas hesitated before continuing. "There's more. Your father's planning to disappear after the Aspen announcement. He's got offshore accounts ready and a plane waiting." My chest tightened. Of course. He was going to vanish, leaving the twins to inherit the mess. Another text buzzed in, this time from Ryan. "Ryan, hey. Need to talk. Not over the phone. Can we meet?" I showed the message to Lucas. He frowned. What do you think he wants? Only one way to find out. An hour later, I met Ryan at our grandfather's old gallery. The place was quiet, almost eerie in its emptiness. Ryan stood in front of a Monet, his usual confidence missing. "I found something," he said without turning around. "About Dad's retirement, about the firm." "What about it?" I asked, crossing my arms. He finally turned to face me, his eyes red-rimmed. "The Henderson merger. It's not real. The whole thing's a fraud." I stepped closer, my heart pounding. "Dad's been moving client funds?" Ryan nodded. "When he announces his retirement in Aspen, he's planning to disappear with everything, and the twins, well, Ethan and I, inherit the mess." My laugh came out hollow. "Of course. Why am I not surprised?" "There's more," Ryan said, running a hand through his hair. "Did you know Dad already sold most of the collection? The Monet, the Rembrandt, gone." "What?" I stared at the Monet in front of us. "When?" "Last month, right after he updated his will." I felt a familiar twist of betrayal. The art I'd spent years restoring, preserving, sold without a second thought. Ryan stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Look, I know we haven't always been close, but you're the only one who ever saw through them, through the whole Parker image. And now you want my help?" I asked, skeptical. "I want to make things right," he said, pulling a USB drive from his pocket. "Everything's on here. The fake accounts, the missing funds, the real estate schemes. Help me expose him, before Aspen." My hand hovered over the drive. Lucas's words echoed in my mind. "Keep up appearances until we're ready." Ryan's eyes pleaded with me. "Please, Jules, we can't let him get away with this." Before I could decide, the gallery door slammed open. Lucas walked in, his face dark. "Sorry I'm late." Ryan's grip tightened on my arm. "Tell her," he said to Lucas. "Tell her who really orchestrated the Henderson merger." Lucas's sharp smile sent a chill down my spine. "Careful, Ryan. Some truths are better left buried." My pulse quickened as the cracks in my carefully laid plans began to show. I stood frozen between Lucas and Ryan, both of them throwing accusations like daggers. My heart pounded in my ears, drowning out everything but one undeniable truth. I'd trusted the wrong people. Again. "Tell her, Lucas," Ryan pressed. "Tell her how you've been playing both sides. Tell her how you helped Dad fake the Henderson merger." Lucas folded his arms, a smug look on his face. "I wasn't playing both sides. I was playing the game." I took a shaky breath, trying to process. The game? What the hell does that mean? Lucas stepped closer, his voice calm, like he was explaining something simple. "Your family's been running scams for decades, Jules. I saw an opportunity to take a cut." Ryan cut in, his voice shaking. "He's lying. He's been working with Dad to funnel money into offshore accounts. His name's all over the fake records." Lucas rolled his eyes. "And you're so innocent, right? You didn't know about any of this?" He glanced at me. "Don't believe him, Jules. Ryan's been benefiting from this mess for years." My chest tightened as I looked between them. Two people I thought I knew. Two liars. "Enough," I said, my voice low but firm. "I'm done playing referee. Both of you have been screwing me over and I'm not stupid enough to let it keep happening." Ryan grabbed my arm as I turned to leave. "Wait, Jules. There's more. You need to know what Lucas has really been up to." Lucas barked out a laugh. "Oh, please. She already knows. Right, Jules? You know about the rebranding proposal I submitted to your dad's firm. You agreed to it." I shook my head. "No. I agreed to help expose them, not to become them." Ryan stepped between us, blocking Lucas's path. "You used her, just like Dad always has." Lucas's eyes narrowed. "And what about you? You think you're any better? You've been riding the Parker name your whole life. The only difference is I worked for my cut." I felt the weight of the USB drive in my pocket, the evidence I needed to burn the whole Parker legacy to the ground. But whose truth was I holding? Ryan's? Lucas's? Or something else entirely? My phone buzzed, and I pulled it out without thinking. It was Mom. Mom, your father needs to speak with you immediately. It's about the firm. I slipped my phone back into my pocket, the knot in my stomach tightening. I looked at Lucas and Ryan one last time, both of them waiting for my decision. I'm going to Aspen, I said quietly, but not for either of you. The winter air hit me like a slap as I stepped outside, my breath coming in short, sharp puffs. I pulled out my phone and dialed Nana Rose. Juliana? She answered on the second ring, her voice steady. I need to see you, I said. Now. At Nana's house, the fireplace crackled softly, filling the room with warmth. But I felt anything but warm. I handed her the USB drive and sat down heavily. This is everything, I said. Fake accounts? Missing funds. Lucas. Ryan. It's all here. Nana Rose studied the drive for a moment before looking back at me. And what do you plan to do with it? I stared into the fire, my mind racing. I don't know. Expose them? Burn it all down? Nana shook her head. Burning things down is easy, my dear, but have you thought about what you'll build in its place? I frowned. What are you saying? She leaned forward, her expression serious. The Parker legacy was built on lies and control. Your parents tried to mold you into something you're not because they feared your strength. But revenge? That's their game. You need to think bigger. I sat back, her words sinking in. So what do I do? Nana smiled softly. Restore what matters most, your spirit, your truth. Let the rest crumble on its own. The next day, I boarded the jet to Aspen, my mind buzzing with everything Nana had said. Ryan was already on board, sipping champagne like nothing was wrong. Ethan sat across from him, scrolling through his phone. Hey, Jules, Ryan said, flashing me a grin. Glad you could make it. I didn't bother responding. Instead, I sank into my seat and stared out the window as the mountains came into view. When we landed, the Parker family home loomed ahead, massive and imposing against the snow-covered landscape. The annual Christmas gathering was in full swing when we arrived, laughter and music spilling out of the house. But I wasn't here for the festivities. I was here for the truth. Inside, Dad stood by the fireplace, holding court as usual. Mom perched on the arm of his chair, the perfect power couple. Ethan hovered near the window, avoiding eye contact. Juliana, Dad said, his voice carrying across the room. We were just discussing the Henderson merger. I stepped closer, my heart pounding. Were you discussing Lucas's book deal? A sharp intake of breath from Mom. How did you? I pulled out my phone and displayed Lucas's latest email. He sent me the manuscript this morning, The Art of Deception, Inside America's Most Corrupt Family. Dad's face went pale. It's all lies. Is it? I looked around the room. Offshore accounts, Mom's hospital fraud, the fake merger. Which part is a lie? Ryan stepped forward, his face grim. Jules, let me explain. Explain what? I cut him off. How you and Lucas played me? How you've been planning to disappear with Dad's money? Ethan's head snapped up. Ryan. Ryan's eyes darted to Ethan. I was trying to protect us. I let out a bitter laugh. Protect us? You've been protecting yourself. Dad slammed his glass down. That's enough. You're right, I said, pulling the USB drive from my pocket. It is enough. It ends now. Before I could continue, the door opened and Lucas walked in, followed by two men in suits. Sorry I'm late, Lucas said, his smile cold. Traffic from the airport was terrible. Mom stood, her expression smooth as silk. Lucas has been helping us prepare for tomorrow's announcement, haven't you, dear? The room tilted as understanding crashed over me. They were all in on it. Every single one of them. You leaked my Met application, I whispered, the betrayal cutting deeper than I expected. The rejection, the financial documents. It was all a test. Lucas nodded, his smile never wavering. Your father needed to know if you could be trusted with the real family business. And you failed. Mom's voice was soft, almost pitying, just like always. I stared at them, my pulse pounding in my ears. The cracks in the Parker family facade weren't just showing, they were crumbling, and I was ready to bring the whole house down. I stood there, my fingers clenched around the USB drive, feeling like the ground had been ripped out from under me. Lucas had betrayed me. Ryan had betrayed me. And my parents? They were the architects of it all. The perfect Parker family wasn't just cracked, it was shattered. Lucas stepped forward, all charm and calculated cool. You know what this is, Jules? It's business. Your father built an empire, and I helped him secure it. We tested you to see if you were ready to be part of it. Ready? My voice trembled with anger. You leaked my Met application. You sabotaged my career. To protect the family, my dad cut in, his tone sharp. This isn't about some museum job. It's about legacy. Our legacy. I shook my head. No, it's about control. You couldn't stand that I was carving out a life for myself without you. Mom stepped closer, her expression calm, like she was explaining surgery to a patient. Darling, you've always been emotional, passionate, but you lack discipline. You've proven time and time again that you can't be trusted with the family's future. Discipline. I let out a bitter laugh. Is that what you call it? Selling the art collection behind our backs? Stealing from your own clients? Disappearing with millions while leaving your sons to inherit the mess? Dad's jaw tightened, but before he could speak, Ryan cut in. Wait, what? I turned to him, the betrayal still fresh in my mind. Didn't you know? That was the plan all along. Dad and Lucas have been working together for years. The fake accounts, the offshore funds, the retirement announcement, it's just a cover. Ryan's face paled. You're lying. Oh, am I? I pulled up the email Lucas had sent me, the manuscript for his book deal. Take a look for yourself. Lucas isn't just writing a book about the family, he's selling our story. The Art of Deception. Quite the title, don't you think? Ryan snatched the phone from my hand, scanning the email. His hands trembled as he scrolled. You were going to cut us out? Lucas shrugged. It's just business. Business? Ethan finally spoke, his voice cold. Our family is falling apart, and you're calling it business? For once, I felt a pang of sympathy for Ethan. He'd always been the golden boy, but right now, he looked lost. Dad sighed, rubbing his temples. We can fix this. We just need to control the narrative. Control the narrative? I repeated, my voice rising. You've been controlling me my whole life. Telling me what to be, what to want, what to need. But guess what? I'm done. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Another text from Nana Rose. Nana, stay calm, dear. The truth will out. Her words steadied me, grounding me in the storm of lies swirling around me. I have the USB, I said, holding it up. And on it? Enough evidence to bury this family's name forever. Dad's face darkened. Don't be foolish, Juliana. Oh, I'm not foolish, I said. I learned from the best. Never trust anyone completely, right? Lucas's gaze locked on the USB. You don't know what you're doing. I know exactly what I'm doing, I shot back. Before anyone could move, the front doors burst open, and men in dark suits walked in. Real federal agents this time. Dad's glass slipped from his hand, shattering on the floor. What the hell is this? Evidence of financial fraud, one of the agents said, stepping forward. Offshore accounts, misappropriation of client funds. You've been under investigation for months, Mr. Parker. The room erupted into chaos. Ethan tried to reason with the agents, while Ryan paced, running his hands through his hair. Lucas, he just stood there, his smirk finally slipping. As the agents cuffed my father, he turned to me, his eyes full of fury. You think you've won? You've destroyed everything. No, Dad, I said quietly. You destroyed it yourself. Outside, the snow fell softly, covering the Parker estate like a fresh canvas. Nana Rose stood at the bottom of the steps, watching as the agents loaded my father into a car. She met my eyes and gave a small nod. "Well done," she whispered when I joined her. "It's not over," I said, my voice hollow. "Lucas is still out there. He'll find a way to spin this." Nana slipped an arm through mine. "Let him try. You have the truth on your side now. And that's more powerful than any lie." We stood there in silence, watching as the cars disappeared down the snowy drive. "Do you think they'll ever understand?" I asked. Nana Rose squeezed my hand. "Perhaps, but by then it won't matter. You've reclaimed your story, Juliana. That's what matters most." I glanced back at the house, its windows gleaming in the fading light. The perfect Parker family portrait was no more, and for the first time, I felt free. 6 months after that night in Aspen, I stood on a stage in the Grand Hall of the Metropolitan Museum of Art. The applause echoed around me, but all I could hear was the steady beat of my own heart. I glanced at the painting behind me, a newly restored Vermeer. My Vermeer. Miss Parker's work on the recently discovered Vermeer demonstrates extraordinary skill and precision, the presenter announced. Her innovative techniques have revolutionized the field of art restoration. I stepped up to the microphone, my hands gripping the edges of the podium. The spotlight was bright, but I'd waited a long time to be seen. "Thank you," I began, my voice steady. "But there's something important you should know about restoration." At the back of the hall, a familiar figure slipped in. Lucas. His sharp suit and practiced smile made my stomach twist. Behind him, I spotted Ethan and Ryan, lingering near the doors. I took a deep breath, grounding myself. Sometimes what looks broken isn't really broken at all. It's revealing its true nature. I gestured to the painting behind me. "Take this Vermeer." For years, it was thought to be a fake, hidden beneath layers of damage and deceit. But the truth was always there, waiting to be uncovered. The crowd stilled, hanging on my words. I met Lucas's gaze, his smirk faltering. My family's law firm promised to restore people's futures. My mother's surgical practice claimed to restore bodies, but both were frauds, covering up cracks beneath perfect veneers. A murmur rippled through the audience. Journalists leaned forward, pens poised. "What they didn't understand about restoration," I continued, "is that you can't fake authenticity. Every brushstroke tells a story. Every crack leaves a mark." Lucas took a step forward, his face hardening. "That's enough," he called out, his voice cutting through the room. I smiled faintly. Have I hit a nerve? Ethan moved toward the stage, his expression unreadable. "Jules," he said softly, "don't do this." "Do what?" I asked, meeting his gaze. "Tell the truth?" Ryan stepped up beside him, his voice steady. "Show them the real contract, Lucas." Lucas froze, his eyes narrowing. "You said you destroyed that." Ryan pulled out his phone, tapping the screen. Moments later, the hall's presentation screen lit up with an image, a contract, signed by Lucas and my father, dated years before I ever met Lucas. The words burned on the screen, agreement to dismantle Parker Sons. The crowd gasped. "You needed me broken," I said, my voice calm now. "Angry enough to help destroy my own family. But you didn't count on one thing." Lucas's jaw clenched. "Nana Rose." I nodded. "She taught me the most important lesson about restoration. Sometimes, to save something valuable, you have to strip away everything false." 2 security guards approached Lucas. He raised his hands slowly, but instead of pulling out a weapon, he reached into his jacket and took out a contract. "Your family's story," he said, holding up the papers. "The rights to it. The book deal. The documentary. The narrative everyone wants to hear. The neglected daughter, rising from the ashes of betrayal." I stared at him, my pulse steady. "I don't need your version of my story." Lucas tilted his head, a hint of the old smirk returning. "Really? Because your reputation, the awards, the recognition, It all hinges on that narrative. You need me, Juliana. I walked over to the painting, turning it to face the audience. Look closely, I told them. What do you see? The crowd leaned in. The damage isn't hidden, I explained. It's part of the restoration. Every crack, every mark, it tells the painting's true story. It's not about perfection. It's about honesty. I turned back to Lucas. I'm not a fake waiting to be exposed. I am every crack, every flaw, every painful truth that made me whole. As security led Lucas out, Ethan and Ryan approached the stage. Ryan spoke first, his voice quiet. We found more documents. I raised an eyebrow. More secrets? Ethan nodded, pulling out a yellowed envelope. It's about grandfather's will, the real one. I opened the envelope, my hands shaking slightly. Inside was a letter in my grandfather's handwriting. To my first grandchild goes everything, the firm, the art, the legacy, unless that child is a daughter. I blinked, my heart sinking. He threatened to disinherit Dad if he didn't prioritize the male line. Ryan's expression softened. That's why they tried to break you, to make you doubt yourself, to make you give up your claim. I crumpled the letter in my fist. Well, it didn't work. Ethan stepped closer, his voice low. We never knew. A commotion near the entrance drew our attention. Our parents had arrived. Mom, once composed and commanding, now looked tired, defeated. Dad stood beside her, his posture stiff, as if the weight of his mistakes finally bore down on him. They moved slowly through the gallery, taking in each piece of art, each photograph detailing their downfall. My father's prison intake photo, my mother's revoked medical license. When they reached the restored Vermeer, Dad lifted his hand as if to touch it, then let it fall. You restored it, he said quietly, not turning to face me. Yes, I said, stepping beside him, just like I restored the truth. Mom's voice cracked. We thought we were protecting you. From what? I asked softly. Success? Independence? Love? She shook her head, tears in her eyes. From becoming like us. Nana Rose appeared beside me, her presence calm and steady. There's something you should know, Juliana. She held out a photograph, herself as a young woman, standing in front of a painting similar to the Vermeer. Your grandfather didn't write that will, she said. I did. I wanted him to see how it felt, to have his legacy threatened by fear and control. I stared at her. So, this was your revenge? She smiled softly. No, dear. This was your restoration. I just provided the tools. As my parents were escorted out of the gallery, I studied the Vermeer one last time. In the cracks, I saw all of us reflected. The perfect family that never was, the broken one we became, and the future we could still create. What happens now? Ryan asked quietly. I slipped my hand into his, then Ethan's. We stop trying to fix what's broken and start building something new. The gallery lights brightened, illuminating the room in a soft glow. The critics praised my work that night, the technical brilliance, the emotional depth. But they missed the real masterpiece. 3 siblings, standing together for the first time, and the quiet realization that sometimes the most beautiful restorations don't hide the damage. They transform it. Story 2. It's funny how mortgage payments and square footage are used by families to gauge love. As I swirl the champagne in my glass and watch the bubbles dance, my father's voice echoes loudly to Mason and Lily across our living room's marble floor. His toast is echoed by the audience. The chandelier's light is bouncing off that crystal glass. I make myself smile and contribute to this well-planned demonstration of family harmony. It's supposed to be my cousin Mason's engagement party, but I'm Naomi. It's turning into yet another reminder of my position within the family. That's not all, though. With his hand on Mason's shoulder, my father goes on. Karen and I want to start you both off right. For you, we have bought the Victorian on Maple Drive. The room bursts into cheers and gasps. I almost let my champagne glass fall out of my hand. Maple Drive's Victorian. I've wanted a house with 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, and a wraparound porch since I was a young child. Just last month, when I made my own engagement announcement, I mentioned wanting to buy the house. I'm at a loss for words, Dad. Mason falters, his eyes wide with real astonishment. Lily takes hold of his arm, tears streaming down her face. My mother catches my eye from across the room. She knows. She is aware, of course. Her face carries that familiar expression, part sympathy, part helplessness that I've grown to resent over the years. Come here, son, my father adds, bringing Mason into a bear embrace. Son. The word rings in my brain like a cruel joke. I observe as my father's eyes beam with pride, the same eyes that turned chilly when I gave him my promotion letter last week. Ethan, my fiancé, squeezes my hand beneath the table. We should go congratulate them, he whispers. In a minute, I manage to say, but my voice sounds distant even to myself. The room suddenly feels too small to warm to full of people cooing over architectural details of Mason's gift while I sit here, suffocating under the weight of yet another reminder. My father says the closure is next week. The keys will arrive precisely in time for the start of the wedding preparations. I get up suddenly, my chair scuffing the floor. Most people are too preoccupied with the celebration to notice, but a few heads swivel. With my heels clicking on the marble in perfect time with my pounding heart, I head for the powder room. I stare at my mirror as I grasp the sink's edge once I'm inside. The woman looking back at me wears a designer dress bought on credit and perfectly applied makeup that can't quite hide the shadows under her eyes from working overtime to save for a down payment. A soft knock interrupts my thoughts. Naomi, it's my Uncle Rick, my father's younger brother. Are you all right? Never better. I call out the words, tasting bitter on my tongue. Listen, about the house. He starts, his voice low. There's something you should know. The door flies open, cutting him off. Lily jumps in her engagement ring, catching the light. Oh, Naomi, isn't it amazing? And it's directly down the street from you and Ethan's place. We'll be neighbors. I catch her eyes in the mirror, seeing her joy wane as she registers my look. I mean, once you and Ethan find a place, naturally, I repeat, erecting my back. I can put on a smile that doesn't quite reach my eyes thanks to years of effort. Lily, congratulations. For the two of you, the Victorian is ideal. Something changes in me as I pass her and Uncle Rick. The well-known pain of being ignored solidifies into something more difficult. Sharper. I decide when my father's voice comes from the living room, and he chuckles at something Mason said. It's time for me to adjust the parameters if love in our family is measured in square footage. The Sunday brunch custom at my parents' place feels like a well-planned act of farce as of tonight, as Mason and Lily talk endlessly about paint swatches and crown molding for their new Victorian. I push eggs about my plate. The clawfoot tub in the master bathroom is the most amazing. Reaching for the salt, Lily says, You truly did consider everything, Daniel. My dad is beaming. Best wishes for the family. The word family hits you hard. I slammed my fork down hard enough to rock the china. Naomi, you have an interesting definition of family there. According to my mother, I've already outlived my patience. No, let's discuss it. I stoop to look into my father's steel gray eyes. Let's talk about how Ethan and I can hardly get a starter house loan approved, but Mason gets a 4-bedroom Victorian. Mason moves in his chair uneasily. Naomi, it's not like that. Come on, really? What is it like then? The words have a bile-like flavor, because that's precisely how it seems from where I sit. My dad washes his lips slowly and purposefully. I don't care about your financial condition. If Ethan and you had chosen better careers. At 28, I work as a marketing director. As I stand, the chair rubs on the hardwood. But you're never satisfied with that, are you? I never do something that is, you're creating a commotion, my father adds, lowering his voice to that ominous silence I recall from my early years. Take a seat. Or what? Mason will get another house from you. Lily virtually bolts out of the dining room and excuses herself. Mason comes next. Abandoning me to my parents and the burden of silent animosity that has accumulated over decades. My father says, I have been there for you throughout your life, covered the cost of your schooling, your very first vehicle, Support isn't the basic minimum of parenting, Dad. It's a duty. My mom reaches out and takes my hand. Please, sweetheart. Your dad has his motives. For what reasons? I resist letting her touch me. What justification could there be for treating your own daughter like a second-class citizen? The expression on my father's face changes. Fear, shame. Before his face hardens once again. Are you curious about the truth? All right, you don't need the steadiness as much as Mason does. He has always done so. Why? As he is your beloved golden kid. Since he is my dad. Stops suddenly, and my mother remains still next to him. Uncle Rick decides to enter at that precise time, interrupting the finish of our discussion. The color fades from his face. Don't, Daniel, don't. What? I glance between them and see the brothers' discreet exchanges of words. What do you not tell me? Nothing. My dad loses his temper. We're done talking. It's like hell. Uncle Rick's guilty look tells me all I need to know about the presence of secrets, so I turn to him. Naomi, what's actually happening here? My mom begs. It's preferable to keep some things secret. You've kept me there all my life, for example. I'm not sure I want to see the picture that is being formed by the shifting components. What is it that is so unique about Mason? Why is he more worthy of everything? My father gets up so fast that his chair falls back. Enough. Are you curious as to why you aren't receiving a home? Due to your lack of gratitude. Because you use these charges to throw everything we've given you back in our faces. Uncle Rick cautions Daniel. My father, however, is unrelenting. If you are unable to value what you already have, perhaps you shouldn't own anything. No more financial assistance. No more family dinners. Nothing. Do you desire autonomy? Well done. You've got it. The ensuing quiet is like a tangible presence. I glance at my mother, who refuses to look at me, at Uncle Rick, who appears to be bearing a heavy burden, and at my father, whose anger hardly conceals what appears to be terror. All right, I respond, my voice firm but my palms shaking. But Dad, keep something in mind. You are not alone in your ability to deprive others of their possessions. Leaving the remnants of more than brunch behind, I pick up my bag and go. I hear footsteps coming from behind me as I get to my car. Hold on, Naomi. Uncle Rick appears to be older than I have ever seen him. You need to be aware of certain things. Things that have the power to alter everything. I stop, put the key in the ignition, then begin speaking. We've been sitting at the diner for an hour, and Uncle Rick's coffee has gone cold, unopened in front of him. He takes an envelope out of his jacket, his hands shaking. He slides yellowed photos across the table and adds, I kept these. I couldn't, but your father ordered everyone delete their copies. The pictures depict my mother in what looks to be a vacation home when she was younger. She's giggling. With my father's arm wrapped around her, she was pregnant. However, the date stamp makes me queasy. 2 years have passed since my birth. I don't get it, I say, but it's a nasty lie. Something snaps into place deep down. Another baby was born. Rick's voice is hardly audible above a whisper. Prior to you, late in her pregnancy, your mother lost it. Daniel. That loss never came back to him, the birth of Mason. I take it that Mason is not my cousin? Suddenly, the fluorescent lights in the diner feel too intense to expose. Rick waves a waitress who is carrying the coffee pot away. There was an affair with your father. He goes on with Sarah, my wife. The outcome was Mason. I hold on to the edge of the table, recalling all those moments, as the world tilts sideways. That particular pride was in my father's eyes when he gazed at Mason. I had never seen such pride aimed at me. Is Mason aware? Sarah, me, and your parents are the only ones who know. Sarah's remorse was too much to bear. She departed for that reason. My phone is buzzing. A text from this weekend's Mason housewarming celebration. You must visit to observe the improvements we made to the location. I flipped the phone over. Why inform me now? Because I saw Daniel's infatuation with Mason ruin Sarah. I saw him gradually push you away in order to keep his secret. Tears sprang to Rick's eyes. I can't keep quiet any longer. Not when history is being repeated. What are you saying? Lily is expecting a child. Daniel has previously mentioned creating a trust fund for the child. He will treat your kids the same way he treated you, make them feel inferior to Mason's relatives. As fresh patrons enter, the diner's bell tolls. I glance in the glass and see my reflection. Even down to the haunting eyes, I appear just like my mother in those pictures. There's more. Pulling out another envelope, Rick says. Records of finances and property deeds. All of the gifts Daniel has given Mason throughout the years have been concealed via phony accounts and shell corporations. The first home is not the Victorian, it's the third. As I examine the papers, my hands tremble. The numbers blend together. However, one thing becomes evident. The extent of my father's dishonesty extends beyond simple partiality. Why are you displaying this to me, since you are entitled to know? Because making amends was one of Sarah's final remarks before she passed away this month. Rick's tone falters. Additionally, Daniel is set to appoint Mason to the CEO position of the family business, which he promised you, and which I have been pursuing for the past 5 years. I worked 60-hour weeks and gave up everything else to earn my MBA. Once more my phone buzzes. It's Ethan this time. Your father just gave you a call. He says he must visit both of us tomorrow, about the business. Good news. As I glance at Rick, I see the evidence strewn about like a betrayal map. Is my mom aware of what you're telling me? Sarah's letters were retained by Karen. For years, she has been trying to get the bravery to tell you. The waitress comes back and pours more coffee into our mugs. We won't drink, I know that. In the chrome napkin holder's reflection, I see myself squaring my shoulders and straightening my back. Rick replies softly, "You know what this will do to the family." Family, if you utilize this information. I pick up the photos, the financial documents, and Sarah's letters. Uncle Rick, no. As soon as my father made the decision to base his whole existence on falsehoods, this was no longer about family. I am assembling the proof of 20 years of dishonesty. I appreciate you being honest with me. I know exactly what has to be done now. My phone buzzes one more time as I leave the diner. It's my dad. I'm excited for our meeting tomorrow, my love. Now is the moment to talk about your future with the organization. Tucking the envelopes inside my backpack, I smile. Indeed, Father. Now let's talk about the future. I feel like the boardroom is smaller than I recall. Perhaps the walls are closing in because of the weight of Sarah's letters in my backpack. Mason is seated to the right of my father, who is seated at the head of the table. An image that makes my stomach churn is one of corporate dynasties. My father starts speaking to the board members, as you are all aware. For any family company, succession planning is essential. From the other side of the table, I see Ethan's worried look. He understands the significance of the CEO role to me. 5 years of missed vacations and weekend sacrifices, endless gatherings for networking. I hold both of my hands tightly around my coffee cup as his twitches toward mine. Mason has demonstrated a remarkable capacity for leadership. My father is still working on his latest real estate development project. Do you mean the Victorian? Before I can stop them, the words spill out. Everybody looks in my direction. The one you purchased for him. Mason shifted uneasily. Naomi. It's not. In fact, I have a few inquiries concerning real estate development. I take out Sarah's financial documents and slide them over the glossy mahogany, focusing on the 3 properties she bought via Shell Corporation earlier. My father's face loses its color. Now is not the moment. Dad, what time is it? Once you give your illegitimate son control of the business, there is a deathly silence in the room. The black liquid from Mason's coffee cup spills like a stain on the cream carpet as it falls to the ground. We are no longer able to conceal. Naomi. With dread in his voice, Ethan murmurs. But at this point, I can't stop. Did you know Mason? As I turned to face him, I saw his world fall apart before my very eyes. About Sarah and the reasons for her actual departure. That's sufficient. The table gets slammed by my father's fist. Except for relatives, everyone is out. The board members essentially collapse and depart. I nod for Ethan to leave even though he hesitates. This is a family-run company. Ultimately, my father becomes furious as soon as the door shuts. You dare. How could I? You dare? I fling Sarah's correspondence onto the table. 28 years of deception. As I battled for the remnants of your attention, you showered him with everything. Mason is still where he is. Hasn't said anything. The letters appear to be written in a language he cannot understand when he looks at them. I took the required action to keep this family safe, my father adds in a voice that is dangerously calm. Which family? The one that you and your brother's wife made, or the one that you have been ignoring? Mason stands up abruptly. The chair is rubbing up against the floorboards. Is it accurate? His voice breaks as he says that the ensuing quiet is sufficient response. Mason staggers backward as though he's been hit. I must. Lily waits. He stops at the entrance and picks up his jacket. Did you ever intend to inform me? The quiet of my father says a lot. Mason walks away without saying anything else. Are you content now? My dad's voice is like ice. Everything I've built has been ruined by you. It was destroyed by you. Every time you choose him over me, every secret, every lie. I collect the strewn about papers. Han. Steady, even though I'm feeling a lot of adrenaline. I give up. You give up? His laughter is devoid of humor. And where do you go? What are you going to do? This business is responsible for everything you own. No. Reaching for the door, I say. I have everything in spite of you. Ethan comes up to me as I'm halfway to the elevator. Hold on, Naomi. What did you do inside? I am aware that it was harsh, but it was required. Was it? Or was it retaliation? Today is the first time I quit paying close attention to him. I've never seen anything like it in his eyes. Fear. For me, perhaps, but not of me. Perhaps both. Perhaps I'm sick of bearing the burden of their secrets alone, I reply. My phone is buzzing. My mom texted me. Mason just gave me a call. He filled me in on everything. We must speak. Mason, the Victorian, is buzzing again. I'm unable to retain it. Not right now. Uncle Rick comes last. It's finished. But are you prepared for the next step? I gaze at Ethan, the life I'm leaving behind, and the business emblem that looms behind him. I tell him I'm not sure what will happen next, but I know I can't turn back. I leave the meticulously crafted facade of the family company in my luggage as the elevator doors open and I enter. Even if Sarah's letters are lighter today, the truth they contain is heavier than before. Between Ethan and me, on the floor of our flat, 3 empty wine glasses are arranged like tarot cards, encircled by Sarah's letters and financial records that foretell the destruction of my family. Ethan points out another questionable transaction and suggests that we may take this to the media. The hidden properties, the shell corporations, all of it is corporate fraud. I remember Mason's face in the boardroom as I touch the rim of my glass. It is insufficient. Insufficient. This may wipe off your father's whole enterprise, Naomi. His legacy is that. I desire his truth. Another missed call from my mother appears on my phone. 17 and counting. Ethan puts his papers down. I'm beginning to get afraid of you. A knock on the door stops us both before I can react. I see Lily through the people. Her face was smeared with mascara. Naomi, I know you're in there. Please. I maintain the security chain in place as I open the door. Is Mason aware of your presence? Mason is no longer there. Her voice breaks. Then he went off. Following the conference. You must know something, though. As I shut the door to take off the chain, I see Ethan's cautionary look. My pulse chills as I allow Lily in because she grips her stomach protectively. She collapses into our couch and says, "The baby." Your dad was the first to know, even before me, before Mason. What are you discussing? I was followed by him. Was aware of the precise day I took the exam. She shows me texts from my father that go back months when she takes out her phone. He has been making plans, the promotion trust funds for Victorian Masons. Before I even realized I was pregnant, everything was planned. Ethan begins collecting the strewn about papers. I don't get that. Unless he's already done this. Uncle Rick's comment about history repeating itself comes to mind. Lily grabs for her purse, her hands shaking. There's more. Last week I discovered them in your father's study. She pulls out a pile of medical documents, Sarah's and my mother's, not hers. I peruse the papers, and the room begins to swirl. Comprehensive medical histories, reproductive treatments, and genetic testing, rewinding 30 years. He has a bloodline obsession. In order to create the ideal family legacy, Lily murmurs it. I was struck by these. I was unable to remain silent any longer. Why inform me now? Because he has more ambitious plans. Mason's promotion was only one aspect of the corporate announcement. He's reorganizing everything. Succession planning, inheritance, and trusts, and none of it involves you. Once more, my phone buzzes. Daniel is aware that you have the letters this time, Uncle Rick. He is on his way to you. Ethan reads over my shoulder and adds, We have to move quickly. Whatever you had planned, I completed it already. Even I sound far away when I speak. I forwarded all of this to the board members. Everything. Tomorrow morning they will discover it in their emails. Lily lets out a gasp. Ethan takes hold of my shoulders without warning. I couldn't take the chance of someone trying to stop me. You're not understanding. Your father gets cut off by Lily. He has files on everyone, including your Uncle Rick, the board, investors, and contingencies. Before he lets this come out, he will annihilate them all. Mason texts me, and my phone lights up. Dad has lost his mind. He is threatening everyone and destroying everything. Have you done anything? Then my mom gave me another. He is aware of the emails. Now go somewhere safe. We must go. Ethan responds, reaching for our emergency pack already. I don't move, though. Years of being ignored as I saw my father manage and influence everyone around him consolidate into this instant. No, Naomi. He is afraid, which is why he has come here. He's not in charge for the first time in his life. I take up my truth, my ammo, and Sarah's letters. Allow him to arrive. One hand remains on Lily's tummy as she stands. How will you respond? I examine the papers strewn all over my floor. They all contributed to the complex falsehood. At Ethan, my father centered his entire existence. His allegiance to Lily battles with his dread of me, passing on my father's obsession to the next generation. I'm going to follow his advice. I grab my phone. I'm getting my dad's number. My family will be protected. Whatever's left of it, at whatever price. The telephone rings twice. He replies on the third ring. Hi, Father. I believe it's time to wrap things up. Before sunrise, the media vultures arrive. Notifications of Sarah's letters blow up my phone, and the company's financial data spread like wildfire on social media. From the window of my flat, I observe news vehicles lining the street, their satellite dishes extending like accusatory fingers toward the bleak sky. The corporate fraud aspect is being promoted by Channel 7. Scrolling through his tablet, Ethan says, The family scandal is the other people's main concern. The communication from my mother hits me like a kick to the belly. How could you harm us like this? The intercom in the building buzzes. Mason's voice pierces the air. Please let me up, Naomi. Lily is in tears. She believes she is to blame for this. I touch the cool glass to my forehead. Inform them that I'm not present. They're aware of your presence. Ethan puts his tablet down. Everyone is aware of your presence. My phone rings. Uncle Rick's voice quivers when I respond. The board is having an urgent meeting. Daniel. He is letting go of everything. Every controversy. Every secret. The filthy laundry of all. We all burn if he burns, he claims. Permit him. I see my father's car drive up outside, though, and my voice breaks. You're not understanding. He has evidence of Sarah's passing. Naomi and I didn't happen by mistake. I assisted in hiding it. Through the window, the world slants sideways. I ignore the hordes of media as I see my father get out of his automobile. He's staring up at my window, his face chiseled out of stone. You mean that it was covered up? She was going to be honest with everyone about Mason. Your dad. He could not allow that to occur. The call goes dead, even though I believed I was protecting the family. Breaking news flashes on my phone's screen. Daniel Crawford, a real estate tycoon, makes public some disturbing records. Several board members have been charged with fraud. The voice of Naomi Ethan sounds distant. Your mom is also present. Below, they're all congregating. My mom and dad, Lily and Mason. Uncle Rick is the last to arrive. The enormity of damage brought my whole family together. I've started moving. Once more, the intercom buzzes. The room is filled with my father's voice. You were looking for the truth. Get it by coming down. Everything. My hands tremble as I grab my coat. Ethan took hold of my arm. You are unable to descend there, not by themselves. I will complete what I started. The voice of my father pierces the intercom. The danger lingers like smoke unless you want Sarah's autopsy pictures to be shown in tomorrow's headlines. I think of Mason, who still doesn't completely understand the circumstances surrounding his mother's death, of Sarah's letters, of years' worth of medical records, and of meticulously crafted lies. He's playing a bluff. Ethan is adamant. My father sends me an email, and my phone dings. The photographs that are attached make me queasy. No, he isn't. It seems like a plunge into hell on the elevator journey down. I get closer to the havoc I've caused for the family with every floor. I may have destroyed instead of punished, as I believed. Shouting inquiries and camera flashes cause the foyer doors to open. In the middle of the storm is my father. He held a manila envelope he knew well. You sought to reveal the truth. He raises the envelope. Let's discuss the actual events of Sarah's death night. Regarding the calls she placed, and the proof she gathered regarding the true culprit. The roar is broken up by my mother's SOB. Mason's face is pale as he passes by the reporters. What is he discussing? What did you do, Naomi? What was it I did? The words have an ashy flavor. Inquire about his actions. Inquire for the accident report from him. Find out from him why Sarah breaks. Enough! Everyone is silenced by my father's shout. His smile is victorious and awful as he turns to face the cameras. Truth is what my daughter seeks. This is the reality. It wasn't a coincidence that Sarah died. Naomi was also aware. She has a long history. The untruth strikes like a punch to the body. Mason staggers back. Lily keeps her mouth shut. Uncle Rick begins to say something, but my father looks at him and stops him. Inform them, Naomi. Tell them how you blackmailed me for your job at the firm using the proof you discovered years ago. Explain to them that you're not only looking for justice, you're trying to hide your own guilt. The cameras pan toward me, seeking affirmation or rejection. However, I am mute, unable to breathe, because I see the truth in my father's eyes. To keep power, he is prepared to destroy everything, even himself, and I've just provided him with the ideal tool to accomplish it. The library of the family manor still has the scent of secrets and leather. The meticulously arranged proof of my father's achievement surrounds him as he sits behind his mahogany desk. Prizes, pictures, the false impression of a flawless family. Everything might have been yours. Instead, he says, slipping a packet over the desk. This is what you selected. Printouts of news headlines are included. A family scandal upends the Crawford empire, and board members of the real estate behemoth quit in the face of fraud claims. Nothing worth having is based on falsehoods. He chuckles. It sounds hollow, though. The daughter who just ruined her entire family says this. The door opens. My mom comes in first, then Mason and Uncle Rick. With one hand covering her stomach for protection, Lily hovers in the doorway. Present them. My dad insists. Present to them the items you discovered in Sarah's old files. I take my own envelope out. I found the actual autopsy report in Uncle Rick's attic. Do you mean this? Evidence of the cutting of Sarah's brake lines. Mason moves onward. What? Everything was going to be revealed by your mother. With a hauntingly serene tone, my father says, the genetic tests, the deception, the affairs, and the involvement of her own spouse. He looks at Uncle Rick, who is avoiding eye contact. However, years ago, Naomi learned. He goes on to say that he used it to guarantee her job at the firm. Did you not, my love? It's not. Tell them how you faced me that night. How you said that if I gave you what you wanted, you would not speak. The room echoes with my mother's sudden intake of breath. Uncle Rick speaks before I can defend myself, though. Give up. He trembles when speaking. I can't, Daniel, just stop. I will not let you to repeat this. He takes a little recorder out of his jacket and presses play. The room is filled with my father's voice. Sarah is overly knowledgeable. We must stop her. Pretend it was an accident. Plans, payments, and cover-ups are all detailed in the ongoing recording. Mason staggers back. Lily hurries to keep him stable. She was slain by you. To keep you safe, Mason murmurs. My mother. My dad bangs his hands against the desk. All of my actions, including the houses, promotions, and falsehoods, were done to keep you from knowing the truth. What is the truth? I insist that he be forced. Quietly, my mother says. That's Daniel's opinion, that his eldest children are cursed to ruin anything they come into contact with. She's crying as she stares at me. What made him push you away, in your opinion? In his perverse manner, he believed he was protecting you. The realization strikes like a punch to the body. After all these years of partiality, I saw Mason receive everything while I received nothing. My father didn't love him more for that reason. He did it because he was afraid of me. You're crazy. Backing toward the door, Mason adds. You everyone. Hold on, Mason. My dad gets up, but Uncle Rick gets in the way. No more Rick, he says. Sarah lost her life exposing your insanity. I will not allow you to ruin anybody else. My dad's expression twitches. He swoops down to grab the recorder. But in the battle, I'm quicker. He knocks down his desk. Photographs and papers fall like confetti on the floor. I recognize something among them. My early illustrations, meticulously kept report cards, pictures of me during graduations that my father did not go to. He pushed away the daughter's whole hidden archive. Everything was yours, I mumble. I did, of course. His voice cracks. You are my firstborn child, my daughter, my worst failure, and my biggest worry. We've all been attempting to solve this jigsaw, and the truth seems like the last piece. The urge to keep Mason close while pushing me away, the control, the favoritism, everything, created as a result of a neurotic parent trying to shield his kids from him. I stand up taller and declare, I'm not cursed. However, you are. With the conviction that safety comes from secrets and that control equates to love. I paused at the door as I turned to go. The business is done. The truth has been revealed. However, perhaps that was what we all needed to get out of the shadow of our worries. I hear my mother sobbing quietly behind me. Uncle Rick's deep sigh, Mason's labored breathing, and my father's quiet. As I leave, I hear the sound of a guy finally confronting the devastation he has caused. Something lighter but no less potent takes the weight of retaliation off my shoulders. Recognizing the key clicks in the lock of my new apartment. A last sound that reverberates. The final box from my father's house, marked simply Memories, is carried by Ethan, who comes up behind. Your mom gave you another call. Putting the box down, he says, she's asking if you'll get coffee with her. I can see movers unloading stuff across the street via the window, leaving the Victorian with Mason and Lily's belongings. They have made the decision to move away from the burden of inherited falsehoods and start over somewhere else. Uncle Rick texts me, and my phone buzzes with the message. This was discovered in Daniel's study. You ought to possess it. A picture of a leather-bound journal is attached. Tomorrow, I'll pick it up. My fingers shake at the notion, but I respond. I open the door and the doorbell rings. No one is present, only a little bundle. I discover a message written by my father and a single key inside. When you're prepared to comprehend, from the kitchen Ethan observes me. It is not required that you read it. Yes, I do. I need to know if I've turned into precisely what he feared, so I collapse into our new couch, the leather still stiff and strange. The day I was born is the date of the journal's first entry. Every page chronicles a father's spiral into paranoia, documenting every incident of what he perceived as the curse showing up as my unyielding independence, my open-mindedness, and my reluctance to accept the barriers he erected around our family. The night before everything blew out is the last entry. I have created just what I feared by shielding her from oneself. She is not born with the curse. It's in my treatment of her, in my current state. My phone rings. I sold the Victorian Mason. Without preamble, he says. Distribute the funds among Sarah's preferred nonprofit organizations. Excellent. A pause. Lily is pregnant with a daughter. That realization weighs heavily on both of us. Another firstborn girl joining our convoluted family history. We're going to call her Sarah. We want you to be her godmother so that we may outperform them via my window, he adds. The Victorians' vacant chambers, which formerly gave the impression of a happy family life, are visible to me. They will now have fresh tales and fresh starts. I mean it when I say I'd enjoy that. I persuaded her to open the box marked Memories inside, which was under pictures and report cards, after we hung up. I discover something surprising. A little battered notepad, written by my mother. It is replete with entries about my proud accomplishments, first steps, lost teeth, and events my father missed. In the background of our family's darker past lies a parallel tale of love. Once more, the doorbell rings. When I open it this time, Lily stands there, resolute, despite her tears. She admits, "I knew about Sarah, about everything. I believed that by being silent, I would shield my child from all of this dysfunction. But in reality, I was just feeding the cycle." As an inheritance, my father's chronicle of generational suffering comes to mind. Let's shatter it then. With her pregnant tummy between us like a promise of something new, she gives me a hug. I pick up my father's key and drive to his office later in the evening. Signs in every window of his private safe indicate that the building is for sale. I discover what the key opens. There was a little box with a note to me in it, and one picture next to it. It depicts my father cradling me as a baby, his face unburdened by the control and dread that would eventually devour him, in shaky handwriting on the back. The time I decided to prioritize fear above love. I apologize. I take the letter, but leave the picture. Not yet opened. Certain realities may wait until we're prepared to confront them. Ethan has opened a bottle of wine to fresh starts at home. No. Watching the sunset, I say, paints our walls in hues of potential, allowing us to choose love over fear and to comprehend. I put the unread letter and my father's key in a drawer. It is not forgotten or concealed, but it is awaiting the day when reading it will be a therapeutic rather than retaliatory act. The dying rays of the day shine through vacant windows outside the Victorians, mirrors of the things we dare to let go of and the things we decide to maintain.